Yeah, I think a key point that I've been talking a lot about in the conference here today as well is about data. It's about understanding both the external and the internal target group. And it's about understanding which elements of the employer offering that is attractive to the target group, credible, distinct, and sustainable. So those 5 building blocks are fundamental for the company to be aware of when they're going to launch a campaign. It very much depends on when it's needed. And when is it needed? If it's a big scandal in an industry, if you change the CEO, if there's a big shift in terms of the products that you're selling and the solutions that you're offering, etc. So there isn't a universal response to that. I would say if everything is business as usual, probably every 3 to 5 years you should refresh the employer value proposition, but you don't just develop a strategy or an employer value proposition and then leave it on the shelf. It needs constant work, constant tweaking, and constant updating. And that depends, of course, on how big the organization is, if it's a global, if it's a regional, if it's a national strategy that you build. But I would say, probably just figuring out what the employer value proposition should be. It's probably between 3 and 5 months, I would say. Then it's about locking in the communications concept and so forth. That's probably another 3 to 5 months. So I think somewhere between 8 to 10 months. That's probably what you need to spend to kind of get everything together. Then what you also have to keep in mind is that it takes a year or 2 to really see an effect on the employer branding campaign as well. So I would say you see something after maybe 1.5 years, but it's definitely a long-term commitment. Well, it should say something that is, true to the organization and that we can deliver on, that also is, part of our long-term strategy. That's, the number one thing. Then I think, not talking about hard facts as only talking about your products or talking about benefits or salaries, etc. The whole point of your employer value proposition and your employer branding messages should be to lift forward things that like culture and other elements that can differentiate you from the competitors, because the whole point of all of this is that you don't want to overcompensate to hire talent. You want talent to join your company for other reasons. That is, that's super key. And that's the whole thing that I'm preaching a lot. And that's it. An employer value proposition and an employer branding message is not just one thing. It's something that you have to tailor to different target groups, because you have a different starting point in different target groups. In one target group you might have an awareness challenge. In another target group you might have an apply challenge. So you need to be aware of that. And also different target groups want different things. And also now with social media being a primary channel for this communication, this also makes it very easy for employers to actually go ahead with a very targeted approach, because now you can really have one messaging to one target group, another messaging to another one. So that's very, very important. So having a strong employer brand will result in you not having to overcompensate for talents. It will reduce the time to hire, it will reduce the cost per hire, it will also increase the engagement levels in the organization. So it's very easy actually to put numbers connected to this, and we have tons of data, of course, that supports that. You can, to some extent, use benefits to keep people and to be attractive as an employer, but I can also see that in large parts of the world, almost half of the talent would actually leave a prestigious, well-paid job in order to fairly similar job if that could offer better work-life balance. So it's not about the money. It's not a key differentiator. And what we're seeing, especially in the Western world and in the US, is that the compensation element and the benefits is seen as more of a threshold element for the talent, something that they take for granted. Yes, I expect to get decent or on par with the rest of the industry pay, and that is not why I'm not even interested in discussing that. Yes. So I would say that the top 3 most common mistakes is, one, that they only build their employer brand or employer value proposition from findings from the inside. They don't look at the external talent. They don't understand what their competitors are doing or what the talents find attractive. 2, it's them not localizing the messaging. They have go for this one slogan, or they don't think about that different types of talents within a country, or if it's a global one in different countries, have different preferences. 3, actually, that they don't do anything with it. I see a lot of companies that spend a lot of time and money developing something, doing a lot of research, having everything. They're set up for success, but then they don't actually activate it because of internal processes, change of management within HR and so forth, and then they restart again. So I think that that's also a danger, and that's why I think it's very important always when I have these conversations. I also want to talk about the next steps after the EVP has been developed. What are we going to do then? What's the plan? So it's very important to have that whole journey planned out, and you don't only focus on the EVP. There's, the EVP is just getting that toolbox together. Then honestly the hard work really starts, and that's when you need to activate the brand. It needs to be a mix, of course, of different departments. Obviously, HR and talent acquisition, but absolutely, the communications department. And what we are also seeing is that HR and communications are working a lot more closely together, and also that budgets are starting to overlap as well between these two. Then one target group that you did not mention are the management and the key stakeholders in the organization. It's really important that they also are part of this, because of course the employer value proposition and the strategy need to come from the bottom up, from the employees, but also if you don't have a buy-in and a clear direction from the top, it will also be very hard to succeed. Yeah, I think build a real business case. Look at what's your cost per hire. What's how much money do you lose when somebody leaves your company, and look at that. Look at what actually a strong employer brand could do in that regard. If it can help you with 1% decreasing the cost, what would that cost be for you that you would save? And look at what the savings are for you as an organization, because that speaks a very, very clear language. Then what I also would do, and I call this pulling the rug actually, when I train people, and that's actually asking management, okay, what do talent want from a career? Yes, having them actually say that and then show them the reality. And in 99 cases of 100, there's a huge disconnect between what management think talent want and what talent actually want. And that's very, very strong. Once again, using data to convince them. That's a must. There exists, very few / any courses on university and so forth how to work with employer branding. So what we see is that a lot of people are self-learned in this field. They have to figure it out, read some white papers, etc. So it's really, really important that to have a dedicated person who really, is certified in the field. And that's also why we at University actually started helping companies to certify people in this field, because there was such a huge demand of this. So we've actually certified over 1,000 people all around the world. Yeah, I think when we look at some of the top employers in the world and what they're being associated with and why talent want to join them, I would say that the first thing is definitely development and learning. I mean, the young generation today, they want to constantly develop, learn, etc. When they feel that they don't do that, they will leave the organization. The second one is the flexibility element connected to the work-life balance. That the younger generation, they want to be able to work from home, want to be able to be in control of their own working hours to a lot larger extent than previous talents. And then the third one is about inspiring leadership, and this is also something that we're seeing becoming more and more important, to have that both on a top level but also of course on a line manager perspective as well.